brain structures. If we look at the third ventricle, there's a depression right there. It's called the hypothalamic sulcus. A little depression there. And that really defines the border between the thalamus and the hypothalamus that you see here. The hypothalamus, like the thalamus, consists of numerous nuclei. And again, so we're in the third ventricle looking at the lateral wall. We've dissected into the lateral wall at the different nuclear groups of the hypothalamus. And there are a whole bunch of them here that I think we just need to focus on a few of them, and I've kind of underlined those that are in subsequent slides. But understand that these things, the hypothalamus, so there's one on each side right here at the bottom of the third ventricle, and from there it goes right into the pituitary gland that you see on the slide there. Okay. Here's the mammillary bodies are right here. If we go back to the previous slide, there's the mammillary nuclei right there, forming the mammillary body. Mammillary body is going to become important in a circuit that I'll talk about later. There's the pituitary and the stalk of the pituitary. Now, if you think of the pituitary and the stalk of the pituitary, think of it as like a funnel. So the funnel is opened up into the third ventricle, and you've got the walls of the third ventricle coming down to eventually form the stalk of the pituitary. The afferents that project to the hypothalamus, one or more nuclei in the hypothalamus, come from this what's called the septal region, which is in the frontal part of the brain. This is the septal region out here. I mentioned that tomorrow in the lecture, the septal region. It also receives projections from the fornix, which travels from the hippocampus to the mammillary bodies. I'll show you a picture of them in a second. These two are part of what's known as the limbic system. I cover the limbic system tomorrow. So the limbic system projects to the hypothalamus. And you've got cranial nerve nuclei like the vagus. The vagus in terms of how fast your heart's beating, how fast your gut's moving, that sort of thing. Also, sensations like taste project to the hypothalamus. The thalamus projects to the hypothalamus, particularly when you're talking about things like breastfeeding, lactation. Sensation from the nipples, somatic sensations from the nipples, goes to the thalamus, the VPL nucleus of the thalamus. Thalamus projects to the hypothalamus. And as you'll see in a minute, the hypothalamus projects to the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is involved in lactation. You also have retinal projections to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, one of those I have underlined. Direct retinal projections, not relay, direct retinal projections to the suprachiasmatic nucleus. Again, going back to that daylight deal with reproduction. And of course the vasculature throughout the body to let you know, or let your autonomic issues know how well you're doing. And some other factors. All right, right, so if I go up here to the limbic system here, let me explain that just a second. The cerebral cortex projects down into this structure here called the cingulate gyrus. The cingulate gyrus projects down through this pathway into what's called the parahippocampal gyrus. Parahippocampal gyrus. Projections there go to the hippocampus. The hippocampus projects through this band of fibers called the fornix. Remember on one of those earlier slides I showed you the thing, the fornix? That's what it is right there. To the mammillary bodies. The mammillary bodies project to the anterior nucleus of the thalamus. The anterior nucleus of the thalamus projects back to the cingulate gyrus, which projects back to the cerebral cortex. It's a big, fat loop. Actually, this loop has a name. It's called Pepys circuit. I'll go into more detail on it tomorrow. But the hypothalamus is involved as a relay in this circuit through the mammillary bodies. There's a mammillothalamic projection. The autonomic nervous system is controlled by the hypothalamus. So you have projections from the hypothalamus down into the spinal cord, well, into the brainstem, cranial nerves 3, 7, 9, and 10, the parasympathetics, T1 to L2, the sympathetics, and S2 to S4, the parasympathetics and the sacrum. Those are our autonomic preganglionics, right? What drives them is the hypothalamus. I wouldn't worry about these two right here. Those two are the two most important ones. All right, so let's bring the pituitary gland into this thing. And you know you have an anterior and posterior pituitary. The reason you have an anterior and posterior pituitary is because they're derived from different things embryologically. In the roof of your mouth during development here, early on, a few weeks into it, there's a diverticulum that goes up off your palate. It goes up. That's called Rathke's pouch. So we know we have the thyroid diverticulum that goes down. We've got the tracheal diverticulum that goes down. We've got one diverticulum that goes up. That's Rathke's pouch. It ascends through the developing head. You see here, it ascends up, loses its connection to the top of the mouth, and abuts a diverticulum growing down from the early nervous system here that you see there, forming in the adult two different structures: the anterior pituitary from Rathke's pouch, the posterior pituitary from the developing nervous system. They have different names. The anterior pituitary is called the adenohypophysis. The posterior pituitary, because it has a neural origin, is called the neurohypophysis. And between them, there are tiny little droplets or little vesicles where they've joined. They have little colloid in them. I mean, it's not really relevant to us right now. In some people, though, Rathke's pouch can persist or form cysts along the way, similar to a thyroglossal duct cyst. And you wind up, if it's an intact duct to the anterior pituitary, you're going to have anterior pituitary hormones draining into the roof of your mouth. That would be exceptionally rare. I've never seen it, but it could happen. So Rathke's pouch versus the neurohypothesis. Now, if you look at the innervation or the detail of the two parts of the pituitary, if you focus on the posterior pituitary first, since it came from the nervous system, the actual neurons that project to the posterior pituitary are up in the hypothalamus itself. The paraventricular and supraventricular, supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei up here. If you go back to the original picture of the hypothalamus, right there, you've got these nuclei out here, paraventricular, supraoptic. The neurons there project down to the posterior pituitary. So if they're stimulated up here, they release their contents into the posterior pituitary. Those contents are picked up by capillaries in the posterior pituitary and taken into the circulation. The anterior pituitary, though, is different. The anterior pituitary, you have different nuclear groups from the hypothalamus that project to what's called the median eminence. The median eminence is the part of the funnel where it comes down to the point. So the funnel is open up here. There's the third ventricle. So these nuclear groups dump their product into the median eminence. It's picked up by capillaries here and taken to the anterior pituitary, where it bathes cells of the anterior pituitary called pituocytes. You have some pituocytes that deal with growth. You have some pituocytes that deal with reproduction, some that deal with essentially the adrenal cortex and so on. Because pituocytes are here, and you've got nothing but axon terminals here, pituitary tumors develop from the anterior pituitary. And because these anterior pituitary tumors are related to secretion of some factor, that's why you have endocrine problems with anterior pituitary tumors. Rarely will you ever see a posterior pituitary tumor. This little system here where you've got these capillaries and then venules and then more capillaries is called the hypothalamo-hypophyseal portal system. What's a portal system? It's a vein with a capillary bed on two ends. Tiana, is this making your head hurt?
Yep.
We're almost done. Just hang on. Hang on a few more minutes. If you look at the posterior pituitary, you've got these two nuclei through the neurohypophysis secreting two hormones, oxytocin and vasopressin. Vasopressin is also called ADH, antidiuretic hormone. Oh, okay. If you have too much, too little, you get SIADH or diabetes insipidus. What does oxytocin do? Back when we were talking about breast, it stimulates the contraction of the myoepithelial cells and causes the expression of milk. Prolactin produces milk. Oxytocin allows it to be expressed. This is the milk letdown reflex that I've mentioned 9,000 times. this slide here looks at the anterior pituitary. Wait a minute, let me back up. No, I'll say it, hang on. The anterior pituitary. Now, in some of these, you've got, if you take a prolactin here, and up in the hypothalamus, to stimulate or inhibit the release of prolactin, there are the factors that are released into the capillaries here and taken to the prolactin secreting cells. Prolactin releasing hormone causes it to release. Prolactin inhibitory hormone stops prolactin production. Prolactin inhibitory hormone, the neurons use dopamine. Prolactin inhibitory hormone is dopamine. If you're lactating and you want to stop lactating, then there's a drug you give that's actually a dopamine agonist that stops lactation. You know, back in when I was a kid, breastfeeding wasn't the thing. Nobody breastfed when I was a kid. You know, you stuck them on formula and there you went. So moms would want to dry their breast up as quickly as possible, and you take, it's like bromocriptine, or I think that's the drug, bromocriptine. You take that and it stops lactation. So there's a releasing and inhibitory factor here. And growth hormone is the same thing. There's growth inhibitory hormone is somatostatin. It's a neuropeptide. Somatotrophin is the releasing hormone that causes growth hormone to be released from the pituitary. If you get to this one though, this is gonadotropin releasing hormone. You notice it has no arrow, it has no inhibitory substance here. GnRH secretion releases FSH or LH, luteinizing hormone or follicle stimulating hormone. We've already been over that a million times. How do you turn this off? You turn this off by negative feedback from the production of product, estrogen and progesterone, from the ovaries or other systems. Same way with thyroid. Thyrotropin releasing hormone stimulates the production of TSH. What turns it off? Free T3 and T4. The last one here is corticotropin releasing hormone stimulates the production of beta-lipotropin, which is here, which is a precursor to endorphins. The runner's high, that sort of thing. The other thing that is secreted, well actually this is one long protein that gets cleaved up. Some of that cleavage goes, the product is lipotropin. The other is ACTH, which of course is going to go to, where's the target of ACTH? I know you're probably brain fried. What's the target of ACTH? Adrenal cortex. Okay? The adrenal cortex, salt, sugar, sex. Salt and sugar are stimulated by ACTH, right? Those products, sugar is the cortisol, right? It goes to the adrenal medulla. Cortisol stimulates the production of a release of norepinephrine, epinephrine, from the adrenal medulla, right? There is a phasic release of ACTH. About 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, your anterior pituitary starts dumping out ACTH to stimulate indirectly epinephrine release from your adrenal medulla. Why? Because it gets you going. You gotta have a little epinephrine on board to get going in the morning. That epinephrine surge is why 50% of all myocardial infarctions occur before the hours of 6 a.m. and noon. And it's related to that. How about that? Can we say it again, or did you get it? You got it? All right. Here's the thing in schematic here, in case you didn't follow anything I've said. Other hypothalamic functions, satiety, the urge to eat, or the sensation that you are full and you should stop eating, originates there. You lesion that part of the hypothalamus, and you either eat too much or you don't eat, that sort of thing. Osmoreceptors are also in the hypothalamus. Why would osmoreceptors be in the hypothalamus? Right, because, did you say thirst?
Yes.
Well, yeah, that's good, but why is thirst involved here?
Blood pressure.
Because of ADH. What is ADH? It's antidiuretic. You either pee or don't pee. You pee or don't pee based on the osmolarity of your blood, which is detected in the hypothalamus. If the osmolality is too high, that means you're dehydrated. So you will increase the production of antidiuretic hormone. You don't want to pee, you want to conserve fluid. If you drink too much fluid, the osmolality goes down, you need to pee, ADH is shut off. Temperature regulation, autonomics, we talked about. Parasympathetics, it's not a specific nucleus, it's just generally believed that the parasympathetics are sort of at the front of the hypothalamus, sympathetics are at the back. That's about all they know about that. Temperature regulation comes from a hypothalamus. The thing about temperature regulation is that people who have strokes, deep brain strokes, they're usually unconscious because it involves very important centers in your brain. The other thing is that they tend to have malignant hyperthermia. One of the worst problems in stroke, deep brain strokes here, is keeping the patient cool. Because they'll throw a temperature of 107, 109, like that, because of the loss of temperature regulation in the hypothalamus. You got to put them on a cooling blanket, you got to give them cooled, chilled IV fluid, that sort of thing. Sleep, because of the hypothalamus projects to the pineal gland. One of the products of the pineal gland is melatonin. You know melatonin, the General Nutrition Center, the melatonin to help you sleep. There you go. Retinochiasmatic refers to the direct projections from the retina to the hypothalamus that I mentioned earlier. And behavior, because your behavior or your response comes through the hypothalamus. So let me explain it this way. Every nanosecond, your neocortex, your cerebral cortex, is perceiving your environment. The temperature of the room, the comfort or discomfort of the chair, the feel of this desk, the degree of light, the colors, everything. Everything, you have thousands of things that you are perceiving every second, because right now what happens now is different from what happens now. Different from what happens. So everything is constantly changing, and all of that information is going into your cortex. Cortex sends that information into your limbic system. The limbic system attaches an emotion to it. The limbic system projects to the hypothalamus that controls the autonomics, which is your body's reaction to the emotion of the environment that your cortex has perceived. The difference between you and me lies solely in the differences in the emotion that I attach to my environment. We are in the same environment, but we have different emotions or different physiological responses right now. Alex may be sitting here thinking, oh, I really like the color of blue. And her heart rate starts pitter-pattering, and she starts breathing a little heavier. Meredith may say, that guy disgusts me because he's causing me intense pain with this lecture. No increased heart rate, no increased respiratory. So the difference...
Like blue as a thunder? That's leaky.
What?
Never mind.
So differences in your emotional response to the environment, that comes through the limbic system. Now differences in how the limbic system is trained have to do with what your mama and daddy told you and taught you about your environment, the genetics that you inherited about your environment, the hormonal regulation that's going on in your head right now about the environment. Okay. Let me give you an example about interpreting the environment. It's on a continuum. Everything's on a continuum. And this is, so from the top down to here is fact. From here down is me talking to you. This is sort of my opinion. There's some basis in this. Everything's on a continuum. Okay? Why is it that I can get up here and talk in front of 36 people? I can get up here and I presented to the American Academy of PAs last year a talk. There were 1,200 people in that room. Didn't bother me a bit. Stood right up there, just like I was talking to you, I talked to them. Public speaking, not an issue with me. Other people, public speaking sends them into a raging panic attack. Their heart starts, they sweat, their heart is pounding. They feel like they're about to die. What is all that sensation? That's all autonomic. That's from your hypothalamus. The difference between me and them is a continuum. Let's hang on to this one for just a second. Let's look at this one right here. What is going on here? Why is it that if you put a small child in front of us, we see that as a small child? Yet other people, our cortex has seen our environment, our limbic system has attached an emotion to it. Oh, it's a small child. The hypothalamus is producing our emotion to that, which is nothing. It's a small child. You put some sexual predator, some pedophile, completely different response to the same environment we're seeing. Here's the one I like. And this is the one I completely made up. There's evidence to support this and that. Not really so much to support this. But this is, I think this is happening. Everybody's, who's had deja vu? You know, you know, I've been here before. No, you haven't. You just had an hallucination. Because if I say, oh, I've been here before, okay, well, describe the events leading up to your previous experience here. You can't do it. There is no such thing as you being there before. You hallucinated that. That is the fact. What my opinion is, comes into the next sentence. How many times does deja vu happen to you? Maybe once a year? Once a year? Once a year? Once a month? Once a day? Once every 5 minutes? Continuously? What is a schizophrenic? They're hallucinating something that's not there. It's the same thing as deja vu. It's not there. You hallucinated it. So it, too, is on a continuum. An instant hallucination that might occur once or twice, every decade, versus a person who hallucinates constantly. Okay? Here's the last thing. I mentioned this before, that there are more estrogen receptors in the brain than there are in any place else in your body. Particularly in the hypothalamus. Particularly in the hypothalamus and the amygdala as well. And here it is out in the amygdala is out in there. Okay? The hypothalamus and amygdala are part of the limbic system. So they have a control over emotion. Did you know that premenstrual syndrome has been used successfully as a defense for murder? This is just something I pulled off the internet. It's been used successfully in defense of murder. So there are hormonal influences on the nervous system. I don't know if they went into that in endocrinology, particularly related to the cycle, the monthly cycle in women. My wife swears that I have PMS as well. But there is a significant effect on the nervous system of varying levels of particularly estrogen and progesterone. The most severe form of PMS is PMDD, premenstrual dysphoric disorder. I don't know if you guys know anybody with it or if you have it, but it's the most severe form. It's PMS squared. I have personal experience living with somebody with PMDD, and there are criteria. There are like 14 criteria to diagnose somebody with PMDD. You will encounter patients in the clinic with PMDD. There are criteria established. The person that I know with PMDD has all of them. She took the test and came, well, yeah, all of them, because she denied she had PMDD until she took the test. This is a typical month with this person. Most of the time, she's normal, and I put that in quotation marks. Here's her period right here. So you count backwards here. We're talking about around a week before or so. She gets into this, we call it Chatty Kelly. And now she recognizes when she's in Chatty Kelly. Because I can come home and I can say, how'd your day go? What would be your typical response? Deanna, if I said, how'd your day go? What would you say? Good. Anything big happen at work today? Yeah. When she's in Chatty Kelly, if I say, how'd your day go today? An hour later, after this rambling, blah, 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 of saying absolutely nothing, she'll say, I'm in Chatty Kelly. Okay? That lasts for no more than 48 hours. Then she goes into this next stage here where she can't sleep. She'll stay up for 48 hours. It's really bad. And she's, obviously, if you're not sleeping, you're going to be a slightly bit irritable. Of course, being up for 48 hours, actually, I think it's the insomnia that produces a migraine. She has menstrual migraines, and so her cause for menstrual migraines are the insomnia. Your cause for menstrual migraines may just be hormone levels or some other reason. So after that, she'll go into a couple of days of dysthymia where she's on the couch. And she doesn't get off the couch only to eat Snickers bars. And then she'll have a period, and then she'll be back to normal. So here's the funny thing. So she knows that I have this slide, because she actually helped me make this slide. We sat down one night and drew out her cycle while she was in this phase, obviously. You're not going to get very far with her up there, but while she was in this phase, and she hates it when I do this discussion, but it goes to the fact of the response of the nervous system to endocrine control is very, very strong. We're going on vacation next week, and Amber's going with us. And last night she was over at the house, and we were joking with her about next week she enters this. It's like, crap, we're gonna be on vacation. You're gonna ruin another vacation for me because you're gonna be freako. And so you gotta take something. She said, well, your best defense is just to stay in the water away from me. So she's aware of this, so it's pretty funny.
Have you ever seen Legally Blonde?
Legally Blonde, yes.
My mom always tells me happy people don't kill people because the whole thing is that she works out, so she's not actually the killer because she has endorphins. So, there you go.
I will tell her that tonight. You need to start working out. How far do you think that's going to go? She's rolling into this right now.
I'm just saying it's in a movie, so you're not
All right.
lying to us.
All right, any questions? Any questions? All right, well, good luck to you. I'll see you tomorrow.